Toni and Troy, The Mystery of the Broken Glass, Part 1. It's the middle of the night. Toni and Troy are sound asleep in their beds. All of a sudden, they hear the sound of glass breaking, which wakes them out of their deep sleep. They are startled, and they run outside to see what has happened. All the neighbors are outside, and Toni and Troy run up to their friend Jason. "Someone broke the window in our living room. My parents just called the police," says Jason. There was a large hole in the big picture window that leads to Jason's living room. Toni asks, "What did they use to break the window?" "It looks like a brick," responds Jason. Toni, Troy, and Jason look at the window and see a brick laying in the floor of the living room. The police arrive and start to question the people in the neighborhood, but no one saw the perpetrator. "Do you know who might have done this?" asks Troy. "I have no clue," responds Jason. "My family and I were sleeping when we heard the loud sound. We ran downstairs and saw the broken window in the living room." The police usher the residents back to their home. Toni and Troy head back to their room. The next day, Toni and Troy play in the park with their friends. They wait for a few more of their friends to show up to the park. "Did you guys hear what happened to Jason's house last night?" says Toni. "Someone threw a brick through his living room window. No one saw who did it. The only clue is someone drew a B and a C on the brick with a marker. Why would someone draw those two letters on a brick?" The friends all shake their head yes. Rick speaks up. "My mother is going to get her car window fixed. Someone broke her car window as well. There was a baseball with a B and a C written on the ball." "So this isn't an isolated incident," says Troy. "Whew," says Jason. "I am glad that someone just isn't after me." Everyone looks at Jason with a mean look. "It doesn't appear to be. It seems as if someone is purposely around breaking the windows at our homes and trying to send a message. Any one of us could be next. We have to figure out who did this," says Toni. As the kids start to walk home, they hear another loud noise of glass shattering. They hear a scream near the parking lot. The kids run over to the parking lot and see Kat on the ground crying, and her nose is bleeding. "Kat, what happened?" asks Toni, and she helps Kat off the ground. "My big brother went to grab us a few snacks from the concession stand, and two kids came out of nowhere, dressed in ninja gear, smashed my brother's car window, pushed me to the ground, and took off on their bikes. They ran that way," explains Kat as she points in the distance. The kids turn their head and see two kids on bicycles ride off in the distance. They are completely covered in ninja costumes. "Kat, do you have any idea who those two kids are?" asks Troy. "I think they go to our school," replies Kat. "But I don't know their names, and I couldn't see their faces with the masks on." "Well, how do we know they went to our school?" asks Toni. "They are around the same height as we are," replies Kat. Toni and Troy are wondering who the two kids are that are going around vandalizing the neighborhood. The next day, at school, the teacher introduces two new students to the class. "Class, I would like to introduce two new students, Bonnie and Clyde," says the teacher. Clyde and Bonnie stand at the front of the class. Clyde and Bonnie introduce themselves. They just moved to the neighborhood, enjoy bike riding, martial arts, and making new friends. Toni leans over and whispers in Troy's ear, "That's them! Initials B and C were drawn on the brick. They ride bikes and practice martial arts," says Toni. "No way," whispers Troy. "That is too much of a coincidence. Why would they move into a new neighborhood and start committing these acts?" Toni and Troy stare at Bonnie and Clyde at the front of the classroom. They wonder how could these two innocent and friendly kids do such a thing. After class, Toni walks up to Bonnie and Clyde and introduces herself. They seem like normal kids. They are very friendly. Toni invites them to come hang out after school. Later that day, in Toni and Troy's room, Toni starts to interrogate Bonnie and Clyde. Bonnie and Clyde become visibly uncomfortable. "I don't want to sit here and be questioned. I don't have to put up with this," Clyde says angrily. During the questioning, they hear another loud crash. Toni and Troy, Bonnie and Clyde all run downstairs. There was a brick laying in their living room with a B and a C drawn with a marker. Toni and Troy turn around and see Bonnie and Clyde. Well, it's very obvious that Bonnie and Clyde did not do this. Toni and Troy look at each other in confusion. If Bonnie and Clyde aren't going around vandalizing the neighborhood, who is? If you like our videos, don't forget to subscribe